welcome to this rendition. When you don't clean your area, you can't get close to your microphone. I'm Matt with sowcincy. Welcome back. Welcome. If this is your first time, welcome just in general. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. To be able to do a Bible study with you. This is what I'm reading through and looking through and all sorts of things. And so if you're looking for hey, I want something to study as well, then welcome. And you can follow along at home. I've always wanted to say that. That's the beauty of the internet, is that it's like you can have your own TV show if you wanted to. And I think that's really, really cool. So we are going to be in Matthew 22, 34 through 40 this morning. And I'll be honest, I had to do a little bit of research going into this one. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So this is Jesus talking to Sadducees, which was like a religious group back in Jesus' time. And then he's also talking to the Pharisees. So those are going to be two groups. These are two they would be considered like the bad guys of the Bible, I guess you could say. But everyone's a bad guy, to be honest. And so that's why you'll see them. And so they're debating. They're coming up and they're debating Jesus with these heavy subjects of the law. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. 34 from New Living Translation. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. That is Matthew 22, 34 through 40. And so each Monday, for the next foreseeable future, we're going to be going over a question and an answer that you will be able to give people if someone asks you something about the book, about the Bible, about Jesus, about God. So hopefully these questions they'll all be listed out on our YouTube. They'll be on podcast form. And these are short, simple things. And so question 7 for the catechism. This comes from the New City Catechism. I highly recommend you pick up their book. It's awesome. It's an awesome thing. And so they say that the question is, what does the law of God require? And so this is where we're at. They lead us to Matthew 22. Let's go through this one more time, because there's a lot of stuff going on here, and there's a lot of really good stuff. So when I was doing some research, in verse 35, one of them an expert in religious law, meanings that they were the commentary I was reading. A commentary is just like a smart person's book about the Bible, and that's like, hey, this is what I found. This is what other people have said, and there's a ton of different commentaries. The one I personally love is Thomas. I think his name's Thomas Constable, but I put in like constable's notes, and then like whatever the book is. And so it's online, it's all free. So that's great. Free is always great, right? And so what he was saying was that the expert in religious law was a lawyer, but not the way we think of lawyer. Like they mean like more like this guy was like he was probably a teacher as well. He probably knew all about, like he was like one of the top guys when it comes to knowing about like the Mosaic law and things. And so the other thing too is that there are a lot of laws. If I remember correctly, there's 600 something. And so out of 600, like it says teacher or it says in 35, they tried to trap him with this question. So either A, they wanted to trip him up. They wanted him to say like, they wanted to be able to like kill him, like say, oh, you're committing fraud against God and all that stuff. Or some people believe like they didn't know themselves, like which was the top commandment. And so they tried to lay a trap. But Jesus, he's a smart man because he's God. So he he knows like what they're trying to do. Like he's like you can't fool me. And also Jesus knows what we're trying to do. So we can't fool him either. Which is the most important. And so Jesus hits him with the 1-2 combo. Ping pow. He says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And so my question is, what does it mean to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind? And when you look at heart, soul, mind, this like encompasses like, excuse me, sorry. This encompasses like every part of you. That's what I think, right? Like your mind is your thoughts, your logic, your reason. That's what I would think. And so you want to act and think and speak in a way that shows that we love God. It's a requirement. We act, we speak, we think, and that requirement helps us to love God. If it's your soul, right? I think that's I don't know how you would define us like a soul. Like it's something deep. It's our intuition, our driving, maybe like our driving force. I would think maybe would be like what our soul is. And so our driving force in the intention of our mind, so it can overlap. My driving intention is that I must love God. And then my heart is like my passion, my emotion, my feelings. Like, so I love God with my passion. I love him with my emotions. I don't let my emotions override me. And I put my emotions towards Jesus or to the Lord your God. I put my intention, I can't remember what I said about soul. Like I put all that towards loving God. And then every action, every word, every thought goes to loving God. And that's the first and greatest commandment. And then Jesus hits them with the second is equally important. What do you mean the second is most equally important? How can you have the most important and then something that's equally important? And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's not just love your neighbor. Like he puts that little emphasis on there. There's a difference between loving your neighbor and loving your neighbor as yourself. And we got a little thing. And so this points us to Leviticus 19:18. So let's run to Leviticus 19:18. I wasn't planning on doing this, but let's run into it. Okay, so Leviticus 19:18, just Jesus quotes the two passages. And so Leviticus 19:18 is the love your neighbor yourself. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against a fellow Israelite, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. And so it's those two things. And I want to say that, yeah, the other one is Deuteronomy 11, because that's what we talked about last Monday. And last Monday's question was, how can we glorify God? And so that pointed to Deuteronomy 11, which was you shall therefore love the Lord your God and keep his charge, his statutes, his rules. So they're very, very similar. And so Jesus quotes these two, I think. Oh wait, he quotes Deuteronomy 6. So let's flip to Deuteronomy 6 real quick. I think that was Deuteronomy 6:5, verse 5. Yeah, Deuteronomy 6 verse 5. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. So he says strength instead of mind. So I wonder if that would be, if you were going to study this more, I would wonder if there was a why Jesus said mind there and not strength. Well, I guess strength would be action. So yeah, never mind. There you go. Boom. See, we got this. Where are we at? Matthew 22. See, we got this going on. And I think it's just like Jesus hits them just with that, like, hey, here's the two. And then he wraps it up by saying, everything, the entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments, meaning that everything comes out of loving the Lord your God and loving your neighbor as yourself. Everything. Every other law that is found in the Mosaic law, which is the rules God gave Moses, and so God made a covenant, meaning he made a promise, like, hey, like, I'm gonna bless y'all if y'all do what I say through this guy named Moses. And so whatever the law is, whether it's a you shall do this law or whether it's a you shall not do this law, it's either based off of loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, or it's based off of loving your neighbor as yourself. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. No other passage or no other reasoning behind it. It's either it's love God and it's love your neighbor. It's not an either or. It's a both and, because he says and one is equally important. What does it say about people? Is that people try to trick Jesus? We try to trick Jesus all the time. We say, oh, if you do this, I'll do that. And then when he does that, when he does this, I'm gonna be like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Like, yo, that's messed up. That's messed up. What am I doing well about this? Am I loving God with my heart, with my soul, with my mind? Am I loving him? Am I loving Jesus with my heart, my soul, my mind? Am I loving my neighbor as equally as like I love myself? Those would be questions for For me, I could probably do better. I say it with my words that I love Jesus. My actions could probably use some work. All my words should be pointed. I'd say about 74%. I don't know. Don't talk about me. I'm not talking about you. Not a person. My mother hopped in the chat, and so I replied to her. So if you're listening to the podcast, that's what's going on. But with my words, I'd say about 74%. With my mind, I'd say about 15%. Because my mind's kind of crazy. And what was the other one? With my heart. Man, my heart's probably the toughest. I'd say my heart's about a 6%. I want it to be more. So how do you make it more? How do you make your heart love God more? How do you make your mind love God more? How do you make your soul love God more? And I think part of that is getting into more of a devotion of learning and applying. Like learning about God and applying what you're learning. Because there's a lot of people who are smart, who know about God and don't, or they know about God, but they don't know God. And so I'm not saying that because you know about God, that it automatically becomes you knowing God. If that makes sense. Like, just because you know something doesn't mean you apply it. I know how to make latte art because I'm on latte TikTok. And so I see them get the espresso, the steamed milk. I see them do the actions. I know about it, but doesn't mean I know it because I'm not applying it. And so it's learning about God. And then it's also asking him, hey, give me the supernatural strength beyond myself to be able to love you with all my heart, all my soul, all my mind. Give me the supernatural strength to be able to get over myself, get over my selfishness, to be able to love you and love my neighbor as myself. Let me be selfish for my neighbor. That would be what I would need to work on. And I would challenge you too as well. How are you? Scale of 1 to 10. Loving the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. If you're a 6, how do you bring that up to a 7? If you're a 4, how do you bring that up to a 5? What do you do? What do you learn? What do you pray for? And also, we'll be, leave in the comments. Or I think if you're listening to this on Spotify, if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, you can. I think there's a feature where you can ask questions. I don't really know, but every time I upload the audio to the podcast, that's an option. Like it's like reader or listeners can ask a question about the podcast, and I know there's also another option where I can ask a question, and if you're listening to it on if you're listening to the show on Spotify, you can reply in some fashion. I don't know. Hey, well, let's do that today. We'll figure that out today, and that'll be on this episode of the podcast. Now, again, our question. If I can open my phone, there we go. What does the law of God require? The law of God requires, you ready? This is Matthew 22, 34 through 40. This is the summary of what they've said. The law of God requires personal, perfect, and perpetual obedience. Whoa. That we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. What God forbids should never be done, and what God commands should always be done. That's heavy. Personal, perfect, and perpetual obedience. Man. Right? Because wouldn't that be what you'd expect out of if you're a parent? Like, wouldn't that be expecting out of your children? That they have personal, perfect, and perpetual obedience? And God is like a parent. A good parent will love their children despite the personal, perfect, and perpetual obedience. And that's what was so radical about Jesus and his teachings, is that you can't get to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength and love your neighbor as yourself. You can't get to that without presenting him back in Matthew 4, Matthew 9, where Jesus talks about, how do I pray? Where is that? Matthew 6. Not even close. Matthew 6. So you can't get to Matthew 22 without presenting Matthew 6. Matthew 6 reads, but when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray. Oh, wait, maybe it's not Matthew 6. Oh, yeah, it is Matthew 6. When you pray, don't babble on as Gentiles do. Don't be like them. For your father, Fasha, your father knows exactly what you need. So you say, our Father in heaven, may your name be kept holy. You can't present love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength without presenting him as a father. And so a parent will say, my child, I love you regardless. I mean, I want you to do great. Don't get it twisted. Like, I want you to listen to me, and your life is going to be long and pleasant and full of joy. But I have some requirement, and I have some requirements of you. I want you to be. Listen to me. Listen the first time. I don't want to repeat myself. I need you to do this. I need you to take the trash out. I need you to get over here and cuddle with me. those are things I say to my kids. And so the when you know that there's a God in heaven who loves you, wants the best for you, will be there to bless you, will be there in times of troubles and stress and all those things, and will supernaturally pull you through that. I don't know how he does it, but he does. Personal, perfect, and perpetual obedience becomes a lot easier for us. And if you have that earthly relationship with a parent, and your parents sucked, and they were awful, and they were abusive, and they were just straight garbage, know that there is a perfect Father in heaven who loves you and cares for you and wants the best for you. And so your obedience to them becomes a lot easier because it's coming from a place of love, not a place of do as I say and I don't care about you. And that's religious people's biggest issues, is that if they can't see, if their worldview and their religion says that God is a man on an anthill with a magnifying glass, it's gonna be really hard to be obedient. You're gonna be obedient because you're terrified that you're gonna get fried, and that's a tough way to live. But if I know that, hey, God loves me, even though I've done blank, even though I've been here and here, even though I don't treat people so great, but he somehow still loves me, and he wants the best for me, and he wants to know me, and he wants me to have a relationship with him, it shifts your perspective on following what the Bible says. That's it. We're going to end on that note. If you like what you heard, if you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel, follow the podcast, whatever it is. Give us a follow on social media. Give us a follow on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, all at sowcincy. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Y'all have a great week. Yeah? All right. Love you. Be blessed. Have a good one. Bye.